funded in Congress. Thank you.
Next question will be asked by Tom, and it will be for Jack.
Would you vote for a debt ceiling to be raised? And
No.
okay,
Sorry, couldn't help myself. Go
no,
ahead.
that's fine. And obviously the answer was no. But well, that's the question. So.
I guess I'll elaborate a little bit. Maybe it's just me, but folks, we're $17.5 trillion in debt, and we've been hearing about the debt for a long time. Everybody talks about debt. He talks about debt. He talks about debt. I talk about debt. When are we actually going to address the problem and reduce our spending and reduce the debt? My entire campaign, this is the #1 issue. I consider it one of the greatest risks to our national security and our way of life. When we have this much debt that's stagnating our economy, it hurts our dollar's reserve currency status. I'm not a conspiracy theory, I'm not an extremist, but it's a proven fact that Russia and China are making inroads to supplanting the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. They're not hiding it. They want to do it. They're doing business with other countries in different forms of payment. Because of our debt, it's hurting us to keep our status as the dollar as the world's reserve currency. And if we lose that status, that is going to be a world of hurt that we have never seen in this country in quite some time. I'm predicting that if that were to happen, the dollar would instantly lose 40 to 60% of its value. My solution? Make hard choices. Take the pain now rather than the pain that's coming down the road. Things are great in North Dakota, don't get me wrong, but in the rest of the country we have a lot of issues. But this is the one issue that affects us all. And we need to get on top of it, and we need to get on top of it right now. No more cuts to future spending increases. That doesn't cut anything. We need real cuts, year over year, reduce spending. And it's got to start now.
George.
Thanks. Another great question. You know, the debt ceiling is really about our future generations. My kids, my grandkids, your grandkids. What are we going to do to solve the problem today? What can we do to solve the problem today? Honestly, one of the problems that we can't solve today and we can't address this with is shutting down our government. You know, last fall, our Congress voted to shut down the government. Over the period of 3 weeks, we lost $24 billion. Several people lost jobs in North Dakota. 2,400 North Dakota veterans lost services. 2,400, not to mention countless government employees, farmers who couldn't get into the FSA office. Why? Because Congress voted to shut down our government. And what was that really about? What was that really about? Was it really because they didn't want to raise the debt ceiling? Or was it really about something else? Maybe the Affordable Care Act. Was that what it was really about? Folks, we do have to address this problem, yes. But we can't do it by closing our services to our elderly, our farmers, our neighbors and friends, our schools. We can't do that. We have to address this problem by getting in a room and working things out, all of us. And that's what I promise that I will do. You know, something else happened when the government was shut down last fall. Somebody sitting at this table voted to shut down the government and still took his own paycheck, while many people across North Dakota were not taking paychecks. I don't think that's right, and I will promise you this. If I'm in Congress and our government gets shut down by Congress, I will not take my paycheck. Thank you.
Well, guess what, George? When the government was shut down, I didn't vote for it one time. Not once did I vote to shut down the government. You're in error. Secondly, while the government was shut down, I worked every day, all day long. And by the way, I took my salary, and for every week that I worked while the government was shut down, I gave 2 weeks away to charity. I just didn't put out a news release to brag about it because I don't think that's what charitable people do. But since you brought it up, I thought I would raise it. You know, one of the most wonderful things about being open when the government was shut down was, I took all the calls, not only from my office, but all the calls that went to the senators' offices when they got the recording saying, "I'm sorry, but we're shut down." I got to talk to a lot of North Dakotans during that time. Now, I will tell you this: I don't think George said what he would do if he was confronted with raising the debt ceiling. But I actually voted against raising the debt ceiling this most recent time. But here's what else has happened since I've gotten to Congress. I came into Congress with a $1.1 trillion deficit spending in 2012. In 2013, yes, the government was shut down for a couple of weeks, but we did hash out a budget for 2013 and for 2014. In the 2013, the budget deficit was reduced to $642 billion from $1.1 trillion. And next year, the Office of Management and Budget and Congressional Budget Office estimates that the budget deficit will be $317 billion. That's doing the job. Going from $1.1 trillion deficit to $378 billion deficit, that's doing the job. But we're never going to get to balance until we deal with the tough issues, the issues that some people don't ever want to talk about. The fact that, for example, the Medicare Trust Fund is going to be insolvent in 10 years, 11 years. Social Security in less than 20 years. So we've got big issues to deal with, but I've been dealing with them.
Next question will be asked by Sarah, and it will be for George.
Legislation to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 per hour to $10.10 per hour failed to pass the Senate this week. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage, and if so, why? If not, what measures, if any, would you propose to help low-wage earners move up the economic scale?
Well, you know, just this afternoon, something came across my desk. The minimum standard of living it takes for a single woman with 2 children in North Dakota is $43,000 a year. At $7.25 an hour, that person is making approximately $15,000 a year. That's a big gap, folks, and we need to change that. I do support raising the minimum wage. However, I think I would like to see it graduated over time as proposed. But let's exempt out certain segments of our population, those under 18, maybe some of those in college. But let's face it, when I was in college some 40 years ago, I could earn my college tuition in a month working on the farm. Today, it's astronomical what those costs are. Those college kids need their money too. Do I support raising the minimum wage? Yes, I do over time. I talk to many, many, many business people in Fargo, and guess what they say? We're paying more than that today. It's not going to affect us. So why the big deal? Let's give people a living wage. Let's get people up to where they can afford to raise their children in a fair and honorable society where they can have the things they need. Kids can have a great education, and we can build something for our future. Thank you.
I do not support raising the minimum wage. I can't even see the sense in raising the minimum wage. The Congressional Budget Office, nonpartisan I might add, showed that we would lose 500,000 jobs in this country by raising the minimum wage to $10.10. Now, here's the good news, folks. You get a 100% increase or a 50% increase in your salary. The bad news is that this is your last day of work. If that's moving forward, I was raised wrong. There are lots of things we can do. How about we restore a full-time job to 40 hours a week instead of 30 hours a week, which is what the Democrat health care plan does. We passed a law that actually does that. Guess what that does? That increases your wages 25% on one vote. But the president has threatened to veto, and the Democrat Senate won't take it up. When I grew up in Kindred, 40 hours was a full-time week. My dad always put in an extra 10 or 20. George said he was raised with a strong work ethic. We are destroying the work ethic in this country by our policies. Destroying it. The president wants the 13th consecutive increase or extension of the unemployment benefits. at a time when it's been going on for almost 6 years, and every state that has done that loses jobs because nobody wants to invest there. We've doubled food stamps by doing away with, including categorical eligibility, which means you just automatically qualify if you qualify for anything. And consequently, you know, we have created a scenario and a culture where it's just as valuable to not work as it is to work. And we're robbing people of the dignity of a job. North Dakota is the best example of all, isn't it? Create opportunities by reining in the government, keeping taxes low, welcoming business, and you create not only jobs, but really good jobs. I had the niece of a Walmart greeter call me and say, please don't let them raise the minimum wage. My uncle will lose the only job he could ever have, and it's everything to him.
I'm not in favor of raising the minimum wage either. My take on that is that what we're really doing there is we're hurting small businesses that have small amounts of employees that are on a tight budget. There's thousands of those businesses in North Dakota where maybe it's a mom and pop store and they have a couple of 2-3 kids or younger people working for them. You raise those minimum wages, you're also raising the payroll taxes that those employers have to pay, and it all adds up. And the question for those business owners then become, do we want more workers making, or fewer workers making more money, or more workers making less money per hour? And that's really what the question becomes. Any business that incurs more costs is either going to relieve themselves on the labor force side, or they're going to raise prices in order to cover the extra costs that they incur. When they raise prices, the low income earners in our society pay more for the products that they make. So I would not be in favor of raising the minimum wage.
Next question will be from Mike, and it will be for George. I don't know if you, Kevin, I'm sorry. Screwed up.
Do I get a minimum wage for passing this mic around?
Yeah, at least.
right.
Deserve at least that.
Had to happen once.
With 8 million people having signed up for insurance coverage through the Affordable Care Act exchanges, how would you approach it going forward? If you favor repeal of Obamacare, how would you handle those who have already signed up?
Well, first of all, we just learned today that about only a third or less of the people that have signed up, of those 8 million, have actually paid their first premium, so I'm not sure what constitutes signing up. Is the other thing we don't know, because the administration's been less than forthcoming with information and data, is that we don't know whether those were people that had insurance previous or not. We don't even, most likely it was a net loss. So I don't know that I would really consider that much of a victory. I think that we need to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and then we need to work on something bipartisan, because the founders made it difficult to pass legislation on purpose. They created 3 branches, a bicameral legislature, because you're not supposed to pass massive sweeping changes in a partisan manner. We can do some things like I think put more federal dollars and support into state pools for high risk that allows people with pre-existing conditions to get health care. We've done that in North Dakota for about 20 years. It works quite well. Thank you very much. We can allow purchasing of insurance across state lines, which is putting the marketplace to work for the consumer. We can provide the individual with the same tax benefits and deductions for paying for their health care coverage as we give to business, and we can give small business the same advantages and the same level playing field as big businesses get. We can do things that put control back in the hands of the employer, and back in the hands of the patient, and back in the hands of the doctors. But we need to do something in a bipartisan manner. And the President's Affordable Care Act, let's face it, folks, it divided this country. It did more than simply divide a government. It divided the country, and we haven't really repaired ourselves since that time. And so we have a divided government with a diverse country. We can have divided solutions and diverse solutions, but we need to come together in a bipartisan fashion and pass a good health care act that has the consumer, the patient, and the doctor first.
I'm not in favor of Obamacare either. I'm a victim of Obamacare. I liked my plan, couldn't keep it. Had to get a new plan, costs a lot more. It's happening more and more across America. And I don't think we're even close to seeing what the true costs of this program are, and it's probably going to be a few years until we really find out how much this is going to cost the American people and the taxpayers. When you take money from one segment of society and redistribute it to another segment of society, that's wealth redistribution. And that never works out for the good of anyone involved in that situation. I don't think we need to vote to repeal it 41 times. That seems a little bit silly to me. I think one vote to repeal is good enough. Everybody knows where you stand. I have some solutions that I think we could talk about. And again, in order to fix this healthcare problem, we're going to have to think outside the box and make some hard decisions. But we could repeal Obamacare and replace it with a true free market healthcare plan with less regulations and mandates. Let's get the federal government out of the healthcare business. We should decouple, optionally, your insurance plan from your employers. You should be able to go out and buy the health insurance coverage that you want from any insurance company that offers it anywhere in America. And that's your individual insurance, and that insurance stays with you whether you go from one employer to the next to the next. Too many people in our country are losing their health care because they're losing jobs. So why can't we fix that? And as long as you have your own policy, why don't we let you have, say, I don't know, up to $100,000 in tax-free health savings account savings. So in case of emergency, in case of catastrophe, you have that money there that you can use to cover that catastrophic event. One only needs to look at the Surgery Center of Oklahoma City. Go home tonight and look that place up. That place operates without government intrusion. They list the prices for all their services right on their website. You know exactly what you're going to pay when you walk in the door, and it's the lowest cost health care in the country.
Well, I think they should get the three of us in the room. I think we could solve this problem. The Affordable Care Act. Rollout was awful. Does it do some good for some people? Absolutely. Some people that couldn't get coverage before can now get coverage. Kids up to the age of 26 are now covered under their parents' plans. Good things. There's some bad things in the plan, too. Jack lost his plan. The president promised those folks could keep their plans. That needs to be fixed. But there are other things in that plan that are great for North Dakota. Let's talk about the Frontier Amendment. The Frontier Amendment fixed the Medicare reimbursement rates in North Dakota. For those of you who don't know what that is, prior to the Affordable Care Act, North Dakota was getting reimbursed at approximately 75 to 85% of the standard Medicare reimbursement rate. Honestly, folks, it's one of the reasons that the big hospital in Fargo and the big hospital in Bismarck had to sell out to Sanford Health. It's one of the reasons, because the Medicare reimbursements were so low. And there's another part of the Affordable Care Act that has really benefited North Dakota and North Dakota citizens, and that's the expansion of Medicaid. The North Dakota legislature, 2/3 in both houses by the Republican Party and the governor, voted last year to expand the Medicaid program in North Dakota, bringing in approximately $85 million a year to North Dakota hospitals. You tie that to the $65 million that we got from the increase in Medicare reimbursements, and it's a huge number. And guess who pays those costs if we lose that care? Everybody in this room. When you go to the doctor, everybody else's costs will go up because the doctors, the clinics, and the hospitals can't roll that back. Thank you.
Well, that concludes our closing, our
Thank you, and thank you, North Dakota Newspaper Association. Thank you all for your questions, and Harvey for your moderation in moderating. To all of you for coming out and being part of this, and to Jack and George as well for having the courage to put your name on a ballot. A lot of people talk tough. You know, I was a soccer referee, and there's a lot of really good soccer referees in the stands, and you're going to find in elected office, there are really a lot of good members of Congress. None of them got there, but they're all good. It's a great thing being your member. It's a great thing. And one of the things I've tried very hard to do, and I think I've done it, is be the most accessible elected official in North Dakota. Some say perhaps in North Dakota history. I come to the communities. Tomorrow I'll be in Fargo holding a Farm Bill forum with two senior staffers from the Agriculture Committee. The Farm Bill that, by the way, we passed. After they failed it in the last Congress, we were able to pass it. Now, we only got 60-some Democrat votes, but it was enough to join the 172 Republicans that voted for it to pass the Farm Bill. After failing, we got creative in how we pass it. By the way, no one ever voted. I never voted to dismantle it. In fact, I voted to put it back together. so that we could have a bill that would pass in a bipartisan fashion that replaces direct payments with a robust crop insurance program and saves the taxpayers 10%. 10%. Real relief. I'm also proud of the fact we passed a Water Resource Development Act that does authorize the Fargo diversion. Not an easy task in this Congress, by the way. I'm also proud of the fact that we have taken the budget deficit and reduced it in less than half of what it was just 3 short years ago. It's hard work, but it's a great honor. And I will tell you that most of the good ideas that I've ever taken to Congress I've gotten from being at Coffee with Kramer or listening to people on the radio, on my radio town hall every week. I think that is the heart of the People's House when the founders created it. It's why we have 2-year, people say it's so political having 2-year, terms. You're always up for election. Yeah, that's what the founders wanted. They wanted you to never be more than 700 days from the next performance evaluation. That's why I love debates. That's why I love town halls, because I love the evaluation with the people, plus the good input that I get back from people in learning. I learned, it was a bipartisan bill. I'm sorry, Jack. It passed 415-1, my very first bill in Congress. The only person to vote against it was the Libertarian, because it streamlined BLM and permitting on federal lands, and I'm pretty sure he figured, who needs a BLM? but we figure if we're going to have one, let's streamline the process anyway. So it passed 415-1 in the House and unanimously in the Senate. That doesn't happen with very many bills. Doesn't happen. It takes hard work. It takes reaching across the aisle. It takes finding a winner on both sides to bring legislation forward. I was able to do that because my bill, while it decreased by 25% the time in getting a permit on federal lands, it increased by 25% the inspections. That's win-win. That's how you solve problems moving forward together in a bipartisan fashion. I've done it. Thank you. I look forward to many more debates. As many as I can get to, I'll accept. Thank you.
George.
It really is an honor to be here and tell you my story. I grew up on a family farm in Castleton. I grew up pitching manure and cleaning out the elevator pit and putting up 40,000 bales every summer with my 5 brothers, several cousins, and a host of hired hands. And we never went home, we never went to bed until we got the job done. We learned that the work comes first. I've got a couple of sisters here tonight that are here to cheer me on. I'm so glad. I have 9 siblings in my family. I have 10 children in my family, my brothers and sisters. They're all wonderful, wonderful human beings who care deeply about this state, the people in it, the people who don't have what we were given, what we were afforded because my parents had so very much. I've been honored for 35 years to work with farmers, small businessmen, many families. I started in the little town of Michigan working for a small bank there. And I grew in my book of business and my practice. Moved to Cavalier. Lived up there for 10 years before moving to Fargo. Now, my business practice has grown, and grown. And I finally got an opportunity to do something that I've always wanted to do. Back in 1979, I came to Bismarck and worked as a legislative intern in Bismarck. And I worked for the Senate Finance and Tax and Senate Transportation Committee. And one of the clerks in the North Dakota Senate that year was a woman by the name of Lila Flagg. And we had our going away party that April after the session was over. Lila looked at me and said, "I'm going to see you back here someday. I know I am." And when that opportunity came up last in the fall of 2011 with the tragic death of Tom Fisher, I went to my employer and I said, I'd really like the opportunity to go serve in the North Dakota legislature. And I took that, and they said, "We'll work with you." And I took that chance, and I ran. And I won in a district that was really a tough district to win in. And it really showed that through hard work, putting the work first, you could really accomplish something. And I feel really good about what we did in the North Dakota legislature. We didn't get everything we wanted, and I think there were some things that we did that people weren't very happy about as well. But in the end, as your next member of Congress, I promise to keep working hard, working for people, working with people. I promise to work with anyone. I promise to help anyone who comes to my office. And I'll never lose sight of the fact that the work comes first. And my personal promise to everybody in this room and everybody in the state of North Dakota, when the government shut down, I won't be taking my paycheck. I promise you that. My name is George Sinner, and over the next 6 months, I promise to work very hard to earn your support, your prayers, and your vote for Congress in November. Thank you. God bless you all for coming. Thank you very much.